Hello and welcome to another video in the lecture series Advanced Biomaterials. So in our previous discussion, we had talked about nanomaterials and nanotechnology. We had talked about what are nanomaterials and why are they so important in revolutionizing the modern therapeutic and diagnostic sector. We had discussed that how nanomaterials can provide better features or improved characteristics compared to the bulk materials because of their much higher surface area to volume ratio compared to the parent material in its bulk composition. So in today's video, we will be discussing about a very recent development in this nanomaterial sector or domain, which is the carbon nanomaterials. The family of carbon nanoparticles or the carbon nanomaterials in general. We will see what they are and what are their types and what are their uses in the material science and the biomedical sector. So, what are carbon nanomaterials? Carbon nanomaterials is essentially carbon in the nanoscale. That is 1 to 100 nanometers, as we had discussed previously, that in order to call a material a nanomaterial, any one of its dimension should be 1 to 100 nanometers. So, carbon nanomaterials are carbon in its nanoscale. So, utilizing these carbon nanomaterials, these are used for improving the thermal, electrical, optical and mechanical properties of other biomaterials. Herein lies the main importance of using carbon nanomaterials in order to fabricate or synthesize composite materials incorporating the properties of carbon nanomaterials into another bulk material to improve their physical and mechanical characteristics. So such characteristics are as we have discussed, these include the electrical properties, the optical properties, their melting points, the thermal properties and as well as their mechanical properties. So what are the properties which makes these carbon nanomaterials essential candidates or favorable candidates in this newer therapeutic or industrial sector? So the first foremost important criteria which makes these carbon nanoparticles a suitable candidates in the medical sector is that their biocompatibility. By mentioning biocompatibility, what we imply is that any material is said to be biocompatible if it is suitable for use with or inside biological systems. That is, its use inside biological systems is not associated with significant toxicity or toxicity at higher levels which is detrimental for the organism or for the living system in which it is used or it is associated. So carbon nanomaterials show good biocompatibility and therefore it is used in the medical sector for preparation of different nanomedicine formulations for drug loading, for drug delivery applications and imaging and so many other applications. Then coming to the second property, it is its intrinsic optical emission property. As we had also discussed that carbon nanomaterials are very good candidates to be used as probes for fluorescent imaging. Now, why is it so that carbon nanoparticles can be used as probes? Is that because they have this intrinsic absorption emission property. That is, if they are excited with light at a particular wavelength, they will emit light at a longer wavelength. So if we can use these carbon nanomaterials inside a cell or a tissue, we can excite the carbon nanomaterials. They will absorb that light and they will emit that light at a higher wavelength which can be recorded. So we can specifically locate the position of the nanomaterials inside the system where they are intended to be used. Then in similar terms with drug delivery applications, carbon nanomaterials or the nanoparticles can be easily suspended in aqueous systems. As we can load many different drugs in aqueous systems and many different composites or many different analytes or molecules in aqueous systems, carbon nanoparticles or nanomaterials being easily suspendable in aqua systems enables them to be used as composites or to be used as vehicles for preparing different composites with other molecules or other analytes. So this aqua suspendability is essential in fabricating other types of materials. Then coming to the fourth property, it is easier surface conjugation possibility. This is also in line to the therapeutic regime or the therapeutic drug delivery application, where the surface of these carbon nanomaterials might be having some functional moieties or functional groups with specific chemistry. This chemistry can be utilized for conjugating different types of molecules on the surface of carbon nanomaterials and thereby improving the overall characteristics or the overall surface characteristics of such carbon nanomaterials. Then finally coming to the fourth, and which is also a very important consideration of the choice of carbon nanomaterials for use, is their biodegradability. Now carbon nanoparticles have been reported to be biodegradable in the soil in a given duration and also inside living systems or living bodies through the action of enzymes such as peroxisomes or peroxidases or lipases. So this biodegradability is also an essential factor in choosing carbon nanomaterials, because unlike other metal nanoparticles or other inorganic nanoparticles, these systems can be degraded and therefore do not have any environmental hazard associated with them. That is why if we are synthesizing nanomaterials of carbon in carbonaceous origin, we can be safe to assume that they will not be persistent in the system for an indefinite period of time. They will be degraded, they will be broken down into simpler components, or even if we are using them as delivery vehicles for certain drugs, for using inside, for targeting to certain cells or tissues, and we do not want the carbon materials to reside in the system for an indefinite amount of time, we can be sure that these carbon nanoparticles or nanomaterials will be degraded by the natural enzymes present in our living body, present in the living body over time, and the residues also are not reported to be toxic towards the living organism. Now, coming to the types of nanocarbon materials or the broad classes of nanocarbon materials. These are mainly of 4 types. The first one is a very important one, which is graphene. Now, if we look at the structure of graphene, it is a planar sheet-like hexagonal structure, like a honeycomb structure with 6-membered carbon rings arranged in a planar orientation. These carbons are sp2 hybridized. And graphene is so important because it can be used for a wide array of applications. Even for gene delivery or for interacting with DNA, it is said to interact with DNA through pi-pi stacking interactions. Also, loading of drugs can be done through these pi-pi stacking interactions. That is why graphene, by its planar sheet-like structure, it is so important as a nanomaterial or as a nano form of carbon in different applications, which we see in different upcoming sections or upcoming slides, upcoming videos. Second one is the carbon nanotubes or CNTs. This is essentially a graphene-like structure, but it is rolled in the form of a tube, single-walled tube. These can be the hexagonal rings. So this is a hollow cylindrical tube. So again, these have properties of electrical conductivity, their mechanical properties are much superior than other materials. That is why these nano formulations are so important. The third one can be the fullerenes. The fullerenes are the spherical structures of the carbon nanomaterials, and these also have specific applications. And finally, we have the carbon nanoparticles, which are said to be assumed to have a spherical morphology with different functional groups attached on their periphery. Now, these groups make it possible for surface conjugation or surface modification, as we have just discussed, which makes these essential candidates for loading different molecules and for probes for imaging and for drug delivery applications and many others in the fields of the therapeutic sector. Also, there is this carbon dots, which are very similar, but they are much smaller than these carbon nanoparticles. They can be in the order of maybe 10 nanometers in size. So these are very small, and these are also can be used as probes for imaging. These, because of their very small size, can penetrate through different intercellular spaces as well, and they can be used as vehicles for and for diagnostic and imaging purposes. So now, coming to the applications of these carbon nanomaterials. So, as we have discussed some of them, one of the main important applications of these carbon nanomaterials is biosensing. Biosensing is basically biosensor is a device which can be used to detect the presence of any analyte or a biological analyte present in a given system. So different carbon materials such as graphene can be used to fabricate these biosensors, because they can transduce an electrical current, and this electrical conductivity is important if you are using graphene in such systems, because they have a better electrical response compared to other materials. So these carbon nanomaterials can be used or can be used as suitable candidates for fabricating different types of biosensor based devices. Then we also discussed about bioimaging, where carbon nanoparticles can be used as probes for fluorescence imaging studies. So upon excitation with a particular wavelength, they will emit at a different wavelength, and this will enable us to visualize any tissue in which we want to detect or which we want to visualize. Again, carbon nanoparticles can be used as drug delivery vehicles because of their surface functional groups which can be present on their surface. So they can be modified and they can be tailored according to the type of synthesis which we are performing. So based on that, we can load or we can conjugate them with different drugs. For this planar, we can use pi stacking interactions. We can use different surface chemistries. We can use different different conjugation techniques to to conjugate or co-prepare carbon nanoparticles with different drugs. So we can actually use them to be delivered inside a particular tissue through active targeting, where we can actually modify the surface with specific ligands such as antibodies, which can actually help us to target the carbon nanoparticles to a specific site or a specific location, such as a tumor tissue, which can recognize only that specific antibody and get and incorporate the drug loaded carbon nanoparticles inside the system, and then they will show their activity. Then they can also be used as antimicrobial therapies. Similarly, by loading maybe with different antimicrobial compounds, they also have this innate antimicrobial activity which has been reported in few articles. And finally, in designing biomedical implants through the construction of different composite materials to improve the overall properties of the mechanical or electrical properties of the biomaterials, they can be used for the fabrication of different biomedical implant-based devices. So with this, we can summarize that the carbon nanomaterials are one of the most promising tools or promising materials in the modern therapeutic biomedical even in the industrial sector for a wide range of applications, as we have just seen. So with this, we will end today's video, and in our upcoming videos we will be discussing about the preparation and characterization techniques of these carbon nanomaterials and how they can be used we can tailor their properties for a particular application. So hope you enjoyed it. That's all for today. Thank you.